So good evening, everybody, or morning, I guess, wherever you're listening to it, whether it be morning, night, afternoon, overnight, middle of the night, I don't know, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever it is. Greetings and welcome into the Two Guys in Beer podcast. Andy Beckstrom, Sean Field with you once again, as always, from the Two Guys in Beer podcast studio. Been a great place to be able to bring you all sorts of different episodes here over the course of, we're a little more than a year now. I don't know that we even celebrated it, but it's been a little bit more than a year.
It has been a little bit more than a year, and it's been a fun ride from where we started to where we are now. It's been pretty crazy. And I guess we're kind of just picking any random beer tonight, and we'll talk about some of our experiences in Germany and Oktoberfest. But I just happened to pull out some Moosehead, which is owed to our very first episode, I suppose you could say. And Andy also decided to grab a can of Moosehead.
Yep, absolutely.
So we're just going to drink some beer and bullshit about our experience in Germany, Oktoberfest, and whatever else might have you.
Yeah, we'll probably spend a little time talking about, some of the favorite moments of the last year, or some of our favorite episodes, or just generally going down the old memory lane, and if nothing else, just the, a video. Now you can see what we look like,
right.
You can you get that, but the studio, the table, like all the different things, like at one point, I don't even know if we ever posted pictures of like the original, the OG when we recorded the first time. It was just set up kind of like I got a little small home bar here, and we just set the stuff up there and like held the mics, and it was just kind of. Hanging out.
Pretty much it. Sitting in a recliner. I think you were sitting on a baseball bat stool, and we're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. So it's been, kind of a crazy, year plus now. So, but before we get, we don't have a specific beer or brewery that we're talking about, but kind of reminiscing back to Moosehead. But before we get too deep into it, got to get the best part going.
Got to open it.
For those that don't remember, the Moosehead Canadian Lager. A,
I say. Super good beer. I like Moosehead. It's one of my favorite lagers. And I'll tell the story how I first tried it. I was building my home bar in my house, which is coming along pretty nice. It's a pretty nice home bar. And I was looking online for some different bar signing on like some beers, but I didn't want like Miller Lite or Coors Light. I wanted something cool type of light or sign or something different.
Yeah.
And I was thumbing through eBay, and all of a sudden a Moosehead light popped up, and I'm like, well, that's a sweet ass name, and that's a sweet logo. And it just happened to be the round light that spins in 360.
Oh, nice.
So I'm like, that is awesome. I want that light. So I bought the light, got the light home, checked it out. I'm like, well, I've never had a Moosehead before in my life. So
got to at least experience it. Got to try it.
Yeah, so I got in the car, went up to the liquor store, found some Moosehead, drank it, and I'm like, damn, that's actually a pretty good lager. It's got good flavor. It doesn't taste like watered down crap. Piss water, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
It's nice and smooth, but it does still have some body to it.
There's some flavor there, yes. So I
absolutely
probably in my top 5, one of my favorite beers, I suppose. I don't know if I could make a top 5, so I'm just spitballing, but this would definitely be up there. Widowmaker, Moosehead are definitely in the top 5 somewhere.
And there's a handful that same thing. Like I don't know that I could make a top 5, top 10. People ask me all the time, what's your all-time favorite brewery? And I have a couple that stand out, but I don't know that I have like this is number one or this is like the top, because there's so many that are good out there, and it's the glory in the fantasticness. I don't think that's a word, but that's what I'm going to say, and you know what I'm trying to say, so technically it makes it a word.
It works here.
But it's the best part about breweries that sometimes there are breweries that have certain styles, like there's German style or, whatever it may be, like they only do stouts or things like that. Some of them have that, but for the most part, some of them more so have a theme for the brewery, but then they'll have IPAs, stouts, porters, lagers. Not all of them have lagers, but they have like a light ale, or they'll have a width and breadth of different types of beers there. And so it's pretty rare, at least in my experience, that I go to a brewery and I'm like, there's nothing here that I like. There's some of them that only have one or two.
A little bit iffy.
It's not very many. But at the same time, those one or two are good enough for me, and they're really good.
They are.
And I've been to some that is like, that's one of my favorite beers. The rest of it's all crap, but that one's one of my favorite. So,
and what else is catching on too is you're naming off all the different styles of beer at breweries. It seems seltzers are becoming more of a thing at local breweries too now. So it's not just lagers or stouts or ales. So that's another one coming. And I don't typically choose to drink a seltzer, but that seems to be coming on too. And with going along trying to pick a favorite beer, like you said, why it's so hard, it's like trying to pick your favorite band or your favorite movie or something. It's like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I love all of these.
Right.
But
and it is kind of fluid, I suppose. For a while, like Linkin Park was my favorite band, but then for a while, Korn was, or Godsmack, or Tom Petty. You know what I mean? So it kind of the top five kind of fluctuates. What's number one to what's number five? So, but
yeah, it's like you said, it's what's going on at that time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Same thing. Linkin Park was probably one of my favorite bands of all time, but obviously it waned quite a bit when they kind of stopped, didn't make quite as much music, and then of course when Chester died, like, became such a different vibe, and then they didn't put out any music, and I still listen to it, but Shinedown has far surpassed that in my mind. But does that mean that I don't like Linkin Park as much? Like, no, I still do. Just it's at this time that's kind of been more of a thing because it's accessible. You know what I mean? There's new stuff that's out there, or it's the stuff that, like, I can go in, I can buy a concert ticket to be able to go and see Shinedown. I guess now I could go buy a concert ticket to go and see Linkin Park, which I've listened to some of their new stuff or whatever, and it's some of it's pretty good. It's a much different vibe though. It's a different deal overall. I think she does a decent job with some of the older stuff, but it's a different era.
I agree. I think in referencing Linkin Park, listening to her sing Chester's parts in their music prior to her joining the band, it's still a little goofy to me. I think she's a fantastic singer. It's just goofy to hear her sing his parts. But the album they've come out with, which releases here in, sometime around November 15th.
I was going to say, it's got to be pretty close.
Pretty quick. I pre-ordered it. Like the 3 singles that they've released off that album, the music itself sounds like Linkin Park. Of course, it's a female singing, not Chester. But if you were to strip the vocals and just listen to the music,
the basics does sound like that.
It's Linkin Park. Of course, now there's a new singer there. Like, they have some bangers. 2 of those 3 singles are bangers, and she does an amazing job. So I kind of view Linkin Park as a whole new band. You're going to have to try to differentiate the 2 eras, which is going to be incredibly challenging.
Especially because when you go to a show, you still want to hear, like, I came to see Linkin Park. And so I still want to hear some of these other songs,
Which they're going to have to play because that's their entire catalog.
Yeah, go ahead and bring me Breaking the Habit or something like that. Like, I'm going to need to hear that.
Right.
But that's, so I guess I've read some things. Maybe I'll get your take on this as we go down the winding road of Tangent Tuesday on a Monday.
That's drinking a Moosehead.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is for. And that's really what this podcast is all about, is drinking beer, talking smart, and, kind of taking it where it takes us. So we'll get a little bit more into some other stuff here in a little bit. But in regards to that, kind of separating it as 2 different bands, I've read some different things about, a lot of the pushback that they're receiving, not only Linkin Park, but especially the new lead singer, as far as having a different sound or having a different voice and disrespecting the memory of Chester or things like that. And I guess in my mind, how do you reconcile with, in the end, yes, you want to respect that and you want to make sure that whether the new person can do that or if you have to get 2 new people and you get somebody that's really good at covering that or something like that, you know what I mean? But at the same time, they're all still musicians. Should they just stop making music altogether?
Right.
Because he's not there? I mean, yes, it's a different sound, and you can take it in a different direction. And in a way, that's why a lot of bands end up breaking up, because they creative differences or, they're trying to do something different with the bit. But, what's kind of your take on that, like them now deciding to do something different?
Well, I think the argument is more so, do they still call themselves Linkin Park as opposed to a new name with a new band? A lot of people get upset about, her singing Chester's music and taking his spot in the band per se, but it's not his music. Okay, there's other members of the band. Linkin Park was formed before Chester even came a part of the band. People need to remember that. He was the last member in the band Linkin Park. So it's not just his band and his music. Granted, he is an iconic voice of metal, hard rock, new metal, whatever you want to call it, which is super hard to replace. And I think Linkin Park isn't trying to replace him.
Yeah.
It's just a new era of Linkin Park. And these people with these criticisms of her and the band and what they're doing, they almost act as if no band in the history of music has ever replaced a band member. It happens all the time in every band, all mainstream bands, Godsmack, Metallica,
3 Days Grace.
They've all changed singers and drummers and guitarists and bassists, Now, it's incredibly challenging to replace a singer. And I think for Linkin Park to continue on, picking a female was the way to go. I think she's going to take less flack than some other guy trying to sound like Linkin Park. See, they're not trying to keep the Chester sound anymore, per se.
Yeah.
It's a whole new deal. Like, look at Static X. They're a pretty mainstream, not hugely mainstream, but they had a massive following.
Yeah. They're known.
Wayne Static has a very unique sound. Passes away. They didn't do anything for a while. Now they've been touring again for 3 or 4 years with Zero, the masked man that they won't refuse to say who it is, although we all know it's Etzel Dope, but whatever.
I mean, I don't, but...
well, I do.
Fair enough.
They haven't said it, but everybody seems to know that. That's
the people
really into them.
Yeah.
And they did a fantastic job. They sound great. They sound just as good as the old Static X. They're not trying to replace Wayne or ditch him or tarnish his memory or legacy or anything. It's just the bandmates want to carry on. They wrote the music, too. They crafted the music as well,
And I guess that takes me back to, a comment that you made of they're not trying to replace Chester himself and keep it the way that it was. And I guess maybe that's a decision that every band needs to make. If you have somebody leave or pass away or something that changes like that, do you go that route, like, Static X, or you could name, a bunch of different bands that have had, the lead singer, take off. There were some 80s bands that, like
Van Halen.
Exactly, Van Halen, like some major changes and stuff like that. Or do you go like the Journey route, where I don't know that they created any more new music at all.
They have.
They have?
Yeah,
okay. I didn't know that there was really anything. But they picked a guy who looks much different but sounds exactly the same.
Yeah, like
so
Steve Perry.
Do you that's kind of what the decision is, like you mentioned, that they're not trying to recreate that. They're trying to recreate their new sound with somebody that has that capability, but that's not who they are anymore. And I guess that's the tough part, is I think everybody wants them to be that. I think everybody wants them to be Journey, where you like, no, just get whoever can sing karaoke the same way, But then you kind of close yourself off that you either can't or you're very limited with what new music you can make. You can't have any other ideas or anything. So I don't know. I mean, people fought back on different albums that people, like there's Metallica albums that people didn't really like that, well, this is the direction we wanted to do. That's all up to you. That's everybody has that right to do.
They do. As a band, they can do what they want. It's their music. It's their creativity. They can do what they want. And quite frankly, that's kind of Linkin Park's MO. You listen to the first album, awesome. The second album, awesome. The third album, I thought was awesome. But now we're not, like the first 2 albums were more poppy, slower, and then they just kind of progressed every album afterwards to like a completely different sound.
Yeah, it definitely became their own.
Right. And it didn't slow them down.
No.
They were still putting out hits after hits and selling out shows and selling out shows. And this new version of Linkin Park with Emily singing, their shows or stadiums are selling out in like 30 seconds. Like you can't even get a ticket. One whole show sold out just from Linkin Park Underground fans because they get the pre-sale option first.
Right.
No general public even got a ticket because the underground Linkin Park fans that sign up for that bought the whole stadium out.
And is there 6 locations? It's not like a 175 locations across the world or something like that. It was something pretty small. But I mean, I don't want to say ease back into it, but I mean, they haven't really toured for quite a while. So this is a way to kind of like, all right, here's some new music. I'll let you chomp on that for a little while. Let's see if you guys like it. And then you can, here's the rest of the album, and then here's the rest of the next tour.
Yeah, in 2025, they said they're going to tour extensively. So in order to get tickets, I already signed up for the Linkin Park Underground like a month ago because I want to go see the new Linkin Park. I've been fortunate to see the old Linkin Park twice. I want to see the new one, and I want to hear the new music live. And I think Emily does a good job with their new direction and their new music. And 2 of those 3 singles, man, are bangers. Mm-hmm. If you haven't heard them, The Emptiness Machine and...
Yeah, I think I've heard 2 of them, and both of the 2 that I heard were really good. So don't forget me when you do that. I'm gonna try to sign up for the underground thing, but don't forget me. We'll just get 4 tickets and we'll figure it out after that.
Perfect. Yeah, I won't forget yet. Provided I can get in there and get some tickets. I can't remember the second single now. I know it, but I don't know it.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head.
But it's more of a banger than the first one, which was The Emptiness Machine. Whatever video game that came out, they did the song, and it's on that. Like the music video is this video game.
I mean, she's great, though. It's fun to listen to. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of a recap of some music stuff.
Yeah, we go from beer to music, and that's what we do here.
Like I said, it's kind of the Tangent Tuesday. But like I said, we're not really doing a specific brewery today. We are kind of, I guess, semi-unintentionally, maybe intentionally. I guess I kind of grabbed the same thing as you did just because it was there. But we're doing kind of a Moosehead, not recap, but a memorial? No, they're still there. It's okay.
It's still
they
there
still
in
make
Canada.
it. But just kind of looking back on like that was the first episode that we did again, and think back to some of the great episodes we've had over the course of the year. I think that probably the Widowmaker is probably one of my favorite ones
that was a good
we
time.
did.
Yep.
But yeah, there's been some that some breweries we were able to get some answers back from the ownership or whoever it may be. Some breweries had a lot of information online and some good discussion points, and some of them it was kind of like pulling teeth, and we were just kind of grabbing whatever information we could from news articles that the Daily Dabbler or something like that. Like, okay, well, at least it's kind of an overview of the thing. But
and some of them are interested in coming on the show. We just haven't figured that out yet. With the one in Amana, Iowa, they want to come on. They said they would. We just haven't figured out. We'd rather not do remote interviews because we have this nice spot right here for somebody to come on. Kind
of a little difficult for some people out of state to be able to come to the studio.
Right.
We'll have to wait just a little while. We haven't taken delivery on the 2 guys jet yet, so we're still waiting on that. So maybe when that happens, we can do that. But
Mark Cuban, hello, we can use a jet.
Exactly.
I heard he's got 4.
Yeah. Go ahead and drop some Shark Tank money in on us or something like that. Growing the brand. Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun, but we're hoping to get out there, and if we can figure out a way to be able to do maybe some remote stuff, or otherwise there's a couple of breweries even locally, 320 in Pine City, and we did talk a little bit with some of the bar manager, beer tender at Mora Beer Club just north of here, and we didn't. The logistics didn't really work out on it so much, but we were going to try to get hooked up with them when we were at Oktoberfest. Not the Shells Oktoberfest, which was fantastic also, by the way.
Yeah,
that was when we think
too.
back of some of the best times that we've had or whatever, like Moosehead getting it kicked off, Widowmaker, just because I love that beer, and it's one of my favorite, I've never been to the brewery, but it's one of my favorite beers of all time.
I made the trip.
Yeah, you drove up there.
I made
just
the trip.
randomly took off and did that. But then I think Shells is probably the other one that, probably stands out, to me as one of my favorite yes, the episode, but like the trip that we, it was kind of
fun.
That was it was almost in a vein of back in the day, the Chicago trip that we took, but it was more of we sat here and we're like, God, that was a good episode. This is good beer. I wonder when their Oktoberfest is. Oh, it's tomorrow.
Oh.
Well, let's see here. Well, I got hockey tickets to go watch the Gophers, play hockey, but well, we could maybe make it work. Let's see if it's online and, whatever. And sure enough, the next morning, we're packed up at, Sean's and taking off and doing live on location from, from Shell's Brewery out there. And buddy Kyle went with, and, the wives, and, it was a good trip and a good time, but it was kind of, like that Chicago trip where it was just kind of last second.
Yeah, that's kind of how I roll personally when I do things. I just kind of spring it. Do it the next day, whatever. Oh, that sounds fun. Let's go. Super spontaneous. I spring that stuff up on my wife all the time. Like, we're going to this coming weekend. We're going to go see Yachtly Crew. And then Sunday, I sprung on her. Oh, we're going to go see Mannheim Steamroller, by the way.
Oh, nice.
She's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I just bought tickets for that. We're going to go check that out this weekend. She's like, what is that? I'm like, you've never heard of Mannheim Steamroller? She's like, no, I've never heard
Mannheim
of them.
a lot.
Like, as big as you are into holidays, what do you mean you haven't heard of them?
Absolutely.
So we got tickets to that. So
Nice.
This Saturday we're going to watch Yachtly Crew, whatever that is. I don't even know what that's about. And then on
Yacht
Sunday,
Rock or something.
they look like they're on a yacht. That's
Right.
all I know. They play like 70s and 80s classic rock, stuff like that. And then on Sunday we'll be at Mystic Lake. That's where
they're at.
Mannheim Steamroller is, and that's where we're going to watch them. So.
That'd be cool. I've seen Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which I'm not sure if you've seen
we've
that,
seen
but
those.
that's
Those
a pretty
are
good time for that one.
was a
Mannheim
little-
I have not seen, but
Trans-Siberian Orchestra was, I think, a little overhyped for me. I guess I was expecting more Christmas music for them shredding the guitars to and stuff, but it was more of a story.
right.
They would stop, and the guy would tell his story, and they would do different things. So I was thinking it was more of a band just shredding
Just
guitars
getting
and
after it.
drums. Yeah, so
Right. Which they do a certain amount of
so
that,
they,
but
they
yeah,
do,
it's not
when
the
they
entire
do,
time.
they do it good. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's awesome. But I thought it would have been more of that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it was fun. It was cool. But yeah, I'd like to see Mannheim sometime. That'd be pretty cool to be able to do that. Remember growing up, like Mom would always have the CD on during, November, December, and
and
whatever.
you pop one of those CDs. I have the Red album. I don't know what they call their albums, but the Red one came out in the early 2000s. Well, back then I had subs in my car. You pop one of those CDs in there, and the bass from a real bass violin and like real bass, not electronics. It's like, wow,
That'll get after it.
It's pretty sweet. So you're driving down the road, banging your head to "Joy to the World" or
There you go.
"Hark the Herald Angels Sing" or something. It's just So,
Nice.
yeah, speaking of Oktoberfest at Shell's, which, by the way, I think Shell's still has the best Oktoberfest beer ever made that I've personally tried at this point, which we have to go next year because we failed to go to Shell's this year.
We did talk about it, but the logistics didn't come through quite as well this time. There was some other stuff that came up, but I'm a little disappointed myself.
Well, we got to use our lederhosen again.
Exactly.
It can't be a one-time use thing.
Yeah. Where did we use our lederhosen the first time?
In Germany, Munich, Germany. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, if you haven't seen the video that we posted to the social media, there's a little short that's got there where we're talking out. Was it Hofbrau that we were talking in front of?
Laufenbrau. The one with the lion.
There we go.
Yes.
The Laufenbrau.
Yes.
I don't really remember because I think even in the video, I think I said I was already like 3-ish liters deep, which I didn't realize at the time. I think Sean did the math for me later that, the liters, you put about 3 of these in one of those.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was already 3 liters by my math is a lot. And so, yeah, you could tell on the video. I had been there for a little bit, but it was such a great time. It was almost not quite spur of the moment like the Shell's Oktoberfest, but in a way, kind of. We thought, God, that'd be really cool to be able to do something like that. And then my wife and her sisters signed up for a lottery for the Berlin Marathon, and then they got in, which they were kind of surprised about, and they're like, "Well, now we have to train for a full marathon." They've run at least one marathon before, so it's not like first time or anything. But they're like, "Well, now we got to train for that, and we got to get going on that." And hey, do you want to go with? I'm like, well, I don't know about going to a marathon, but when is it again? Well, the end of September.
Oh yeah. Let me think about that for a second.
You know what else is at the end of September? The beginning of October.
Right.
So yeah, it just became kind of a discussion, and I think I brought it up at one point or whatever. I'm like, would you have interest, like, legit going to the actual Oktoberfest? And I think the next week you showed up and you're like, so we're looking at tickets.
Yep.
And so it just, that kind of, spiraled, not out of control, into control, spiraled into success, I guess.
Very successful.
Yeah, but it was... Yeah, just kind of a, not spur of the moment, but in a way kind of spur of the moment of, just kind of a, let's go to Germany. Why not?
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I'm like, I would love to go to Oktoberfest. Really want to do it. It's kind of a life goal, dream. Never going to happen. You know what I mean? Because there's got to be something else going on, because am I really going to pay that much and spend that much time on a plane just to go drink beer?
Yes.
I mean,
yes. After that experience, the answer would be yes.
Yeah. And so, like, before that, I'm like, that's just never really going to happen. And so when this situation presented itself, I'm like, when is this ever going to happen again? I mean, now that I've been there, now it's like we're looking at, like, maybe we go again next year. Why,
right.
Why wouldn't we? But yeah, so a little bit different experiences, I think, for the two of us, just because we had two different things going on, but we all met up at Oktoberfest, and wow, it was just a fantastic day. Yeah, just an amazing experience.
It really was. It was a lot of fun. It was more than I expected. I guess to your point, going to Germany or specifically Oktoberfest never really crossed my mind in my life. Like, I travel a lot. I'm all over the place. You know that. Mostly within the United States, but I've been out of the country, a handful of times, and never thought twice about going to Germany, of all places. I was never opposed to it. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge history guy, so obviously World War II, a lot of history, over in Europe with the kings and queens and princes, so I'm really into that stuff. Never thought twice about it. On my list to go, but man, it was so worth it. I'm glad we went. The Oktoberfest, the beer's good. Like Andy mentioned, every stein of beer is a liter, which is 3 American beers in 1 liter, and we both had about 3 liters when we did that video. Our plan was to do a few more videos than that, and we were going to try to run around and interview people. That just didn't work out because we were busy drinking. And Andy's family, unfortunately for him, he was probably 4 liters in on that, and I was only 3 because they kept adding more to his beer. So he was.
You're probably not wrong. It's been known to happen. If I don't pay attention too much or whatever, and sometimes even if I am paying attention or whatever, Amanda will, especially like if my beer is almost empty or lower, if I look away, she just does the old swap-a-doozy, and then I'm like,
oh wow.
All right.
Look what happened here.
I mean, I'm never really turning it down, so it's not really a problem. But, that doesn't surprise me.
You were probably 4 liters in.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense of, if I think the picture of me at the end of the night made it out there, too, somewhere. But
I have it. I haven't posted. I was going to share everybody with it, but, he's on the train ride home sleeping. So
yeah, it was.
We'll have to do it before Oktoberfest and after Oktoberfest.
And I still argue that, and I'm hoping that everybody out there, feel free to comment and chime in on the socials and everything like that. But I'm hoping that somebody will back me up on this one. I still maintain that I was just tired.
Sure.
At that point, because I mean, yes, the jet lag, but like if you drink that much beer, like you can drink beer all day long, but once you stop drinking beer. My mind, like once I stop drinking beer, then all of a sudden I'm just like sluggish and tired and just kind of half fall apart.
Right, all that work, all that the chin lifting.
Exactly. Yeah. So I that's just how beer is always effective. If I keep drinking it, then I'm fine and I can stay, going or whatever. But yeah, once I stop, then it's kind of hard to like get going again. And so, yeah, that was, we went out to dinner after that, and that didn't go well either. I mean, it went fine. It didn't go bad, but it just definitely was kind of like I was like falling asleep at the table and they were making fun of me, and I had another liter there.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you?
Of course. Why, why not? But yeah, it was still fun. It was a blast. And it was so busy though. We knew that it was going to be busy, but I don't know that I was prepared for how many people would be there on a Tuesday.
Right. And it was,
and everywhere.
Like being at the state fair, it was shoulder to shoulder, nuts to butts. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you went, you were nuts to butts in these so-called tents, which really aren't tents. They're buildings that hold 6,000 people at tables. But that's how packed it was, and by 10:30, people were already standing on tables and sloshing their beers around to that Prost song. I don't even know what it's called, and beer was sloshing, and music was a blaring, and pretzels were a flying, and beers were being drank.
And chickens were a wagging.
Chickens were flapping.
Yeah, it was unreal. It was just an amazing experience. But yeah, to get that many people in there, and like you said, like these structures are, you conjure the idea of a tent, like even a big tent. I'm thinking like the wedding tents, you know what I mean? The soft side, the poles, stuff like that. And then I'm like, they get how many people in there? And we get there and we go in and they have like I-beam girders and big, 6x6 timbers holding stuff up and second level, patio seating or like overlooks and, like stuff everywhere. And when we first got there, there was like carpenters running around, like nailing down floorboards and stuff like that. So, it's stuff. It's not like it's like it's a temporary structure, but it's not like it's, I don't know. It's so weird to even conjure like what to compare that to. But yeah, to use like that safe beer comparison, it's like, okay, well, this entire block is now Laufenbrau.
Right.
It's a gigantic tent that, yes, the roof is soft side.
One big ass beer hall.
But it is like the floors, the posts, everything holding it up, the structure is all appears to be fairly permanent. It's already down by this at this point, so it doesn't take very long for them to tear it all down. But it's unreal, what they're able to get built in there, and they pack people in. This is not a Americanized. All right, we need to make sure that people have their space and you're not bumping into each other and stuff like this. This is like Minnesota State Fair down by the grandstand after the band has let out. Like we're talking when he means nut to butt. That's when you're sitting down.
It's
like
legit.
It doesn't matter where you're at. Like you're trying to like basically tactically sit in between people or use them as like a backrest.
They're your backrest, right?
And it's not a matter of when you get there, you don't have a server. I mean, you kind of do, but you don't have like a dedicated server that you're like, okay, what can I get for you tonight? And were you looking for some appetizers? And how about some zingers for the table or something like that? No, you show up and you just hope to God you can find a spot in there because early in the day it's pretty easy to get there. But when we got there a little bit later on and we started moving around, there was 8 of us, 7 of us?
Yeah, I think 7 of us,
something like that. But we got to a couple places and like you can't get in there. You can't get in there. You can't find a spot. There was a couple of them. We walked around. We did like 2 laps trying to be able to find anything, and we find like 3 tables, kind of somewhat adjacent, with like 2-3 spots each. I ended up partying and drinking with a guy from Madrid, which I got a story about that here coming up too, and maybe we already discussed it. Oh, I did tell you about that. Yeah, I did tell you about that one.
Yeah.
Just the creepiness of Facebook and Meta and Mark Zuckerberg. But, that's what you do. You know what I mean? Everybody's just jammed in there. And when you get seated down, like there's servers, I guess, that run around, but they're not coming to your table. You have to wave them down. This is what I want. And it's also not, you don't have like, can I get the tap list? Can I get the, what 7 beers do you have? And it's like, no, they have 2. Some of them only have 1. And you just say 7.
Yep.
That's all it is. And they don't have any more time for that beyond that. If you dawdle or take any longer than that, they're already gone.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. And they come back with 7 of them in one hand.
7 liters.
7 liters. And like, they're just like, bam. And you pay cash right there at the table. And then you just move on with life. You just start drinking your beer.
You start drinking beer, yeah.
And, the best part about it, you go to something like that, you go to the state fair, like most people are in a good mood and most people it's not an issue, but every so often you run into some kerfuffles and some different issues, stuff like that. I don't know that I ran across anybody that was even upset the entire time there.
Nope.
That much beer and that much alcohol, you'd think that some people would be, like, hey, you ran into me or, whatever. It's like, no, you run into somebody who's like, hey, cheers.
Right.
Like they're just right back after it. Bathrooms this way. It's just... It's absolutely unreal, the experience, and everything was positive about it. The food was great, the beer was great, the atmosphere, the you almost want to call it uniforms, but like the outfits,
right.
You know what I mean? We got the lederhosen and the girls got the drindles and, kind of went with the thing. And it was kind of, well, are we going too far with this? Are we getting this? Are we taking this too seriously? I swear to God, if you go there and you're not dressed up,
you're the outcast.
You're going to be the one that they're going to be looking at. So buy yourself something if you're going to be going to that. But, oh, man, what an experience.
Yeah, I bet at least 95% of the patrons that show up at Oktoberfest were dressed for the occasion, lederhosen or the dresses. We went on Tuesday, and it was like Kids' Day in the morning. There were school buses dropping kids off there. They were all dressed for it, too. And before you get too crazy about kids showing up at Oktoberfest, yeah, there's a lot of beer drinking there, and there's a lot of beer halls there. I think there's 6 main breweries that have the big tents there, and then there's like 30 offshoot ones of smaller breweries. But this place is like carnival rides and games, and it's basically like an oversized county fair. Probably not quite as big as like the Minnesota State Fair, but it's massive.
Yeah.
So that's why you have kids running around having a good time. And another thing you got to think about that too is in the German culture, beer is just part of their way of life.
Yeah.
You can drink when you're 14 there. That's just a social thing. It's like to your point, I didn't see many people getting drunk at all. I mean, there probably was.
Yeah.
But if they were, there was no crabbiness. It's just a part of the thing. You're just having a good time. But even then, personally, I really didn't see anybody drunk there at all like I would here in town at a local bar. I mean, you were buzzed up pretty good. I was getting a pretty good buzz, but it wasn't, nobody was stumbling around, puking, acting like a fool.
Well, because you didn't go to Puke Hill. There is a hill that literally is named Puke Hill.
I did not go out there.
It does have that. Apparently, I walked past it. I didn't even know that it was there, but, that's what I was told after the fact. But
that's one thing we missed out on is
puking.
Well, yeah, we did miss out on that, but touring the grounds a little bit more.
Right.
We kind of just went from tent to tent, drank, and that might be a reason to go back there again.
I was going to say, we're going to have to go back again just for the experience.
Yeah, we didn't do any of the where you sit in the middle and that saucer spins and you fly off, or that belt.
Oh, the belt.
We didn't do the belt.
I forgot all about that.
We were supposed to do the belt, but we just got into drinking, and it was so much fun. It was just kind of everything else went haywire.
And that's one of those things that, for me personally, that was such a whirlwind trip. You know what I mean? It was only 7 days long, and 2.5 of it for me was flying. Right. And so really it was only 5 days. And so it was get there, get checked in, and get to, the hotel that I was going to stay at. The next day was the event, the open house, not the open house, but the thing for the marathon to be able to get bibs and stuff like that, which was so big that it was held at an old airport, a Soviet area, well, I suppose not Soviet, communist era airport that was no longer in service, but it's just a massive, huge building with basically they just run you out onto the tarmac and they just had it fenced off to be able to be there. The expo is what it is.
Sure.
So we went there to be able to check that out. And then the next day was, getting ready for the marathon and getting all the final preparations. And then me and my brother-in-law ran the 5K marathon, is what we like to call it.
And what did you do halfway through?
Halfway through? What did we do halfway through?
Well, you stopped. Did you not stop and drink a beer?
No, there wasn't any beer on the road.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, they had non-alcoholic beer at the end. It was terrible.
Oh, I misheard. I thought for sure.
No, I wanted to, but
that's what you'd said.
No,
I'm like, what?
That would have been great.
And you're like, cheers.
Yeah. No, there was a non-alcoholic beer stuff at the end, and we went and found a beer, regular beer, right away. But they had
misunderstood.
They had Berliners, the little stuffed donut thing.
Okay.
At the end or whatever for us to be able to have, and so that kind of ate up most of the day or whatever. And so me and Alan are already kind of getting after it, and the girls had to get up super early to be able to get ready for the marathon. And then the next day was the marathon, which was a whole different experience. My God, if you've ever seen 60,000 people in one spot. It was an experience just to see that many people going and running and stuff like that. And so we used the subway system, and the transit system is just phenomenal there. It was absolutely great. That's the other part about Munich too, that you could get completely tore up and you're not driving home. Nobody's driving home. That's not really part of the thing. There's so much transit that there's not that even that much parking really that's there, because not as many people have. They have vehicles, but it's just not. Mass transit is such a different thing culturally there too.
Well, and Germany's been there so much longer than the United States, and it's so much smaller.
Yep.
So, all those old towns weren't built for your F-350 and all those things.
Exactly.
So it's a lot more confined.
So we use the trains to be able to like skip ahead, during the marathon and be able to cheer the girls on a little bit, and so that ate up pretty much that day. The next morning we drove down. It was about a 5-hour drive, I think is what it was. Maybe it was 6 hours. I don't know. It was forever in this tiny little car on the Autobahn, which let me tell you. 3 lanes there's 6, but the 3 lanes on your side for the Autobahn. The right lane is for the big trucks because everything is trucks. They have trains there, but they don't really have freight trains, so to speak. Most everything is trucked all around there, which is fine. We have a million trucks here too. So there's trucks there. You want to kind of live in that middle lane, and you still have to get after it. I don't know what speed we were going because it was in kilometers per hour, and I didn't do the math at the time. But I know at one point in time, like you want to, like if you're going to pass somebody, you kind of take a look and you make sure that there's not anybody for like a mile and a half behind you. And then you just got to can it to be able to get around them, because even if you can't see them, by the time you get passing, because that's the sports car lane for like, you say, like the German brands, like a BMW or something, they're the German brand. So they don't have like Ford and Hyundai or anything over there. They have the Volkswagen and the BMWs. Like that's what they have. That's what what it is. So, we definitely got a little bit of a downhill, and we're like, well, we're passing like 2 people, and so let's find out what this car has. A little T-Rock from Volkswagen, tiny little 4-banger. It got after it. It got pretty good or whatever. And I think that we were probably going. I want to say I did the math. It was like 165 or 170 kilometers per hour, which is a little more than 100 miles an hour, I believe. Like maybe 105, 110. I don't. Somebody can correct me online.
I think it's around 120 or 130.
Whatever it was, we were flying, and we had to still get out of that lane because somebody just came rifling up behind us, and like we were standing still. It was just unreal. So that was kind of its own experience. And then the next day was Oktoberfest, and then the next morning I flew out. So there wasn't really a whole lot of relaxing. That's why I was saying like we had a little bit different experiences. You had a little bit more, but that's where I'd like to go back and go to Oktoberfest like 2 or 3 days. Yeah. Spend one day where maybe I don't have one beer. Yeah, I was going to say don't have a beer, but I don't think I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
Have a limited
People
beer.
Hold you to that on the next show.
Exactly. Limited beer, limited intake on that one. But it'd be fun to be able, like you're saying, be able to experience all the different things.
Do the different games and stuff. And, another good one of my favorite portions of Oktoberfest was the bands. Listening to the bands do that maybe German polka, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure what style of music you would call that. It's kind of polka-ish. But then they would do, Sweet Caroline, which is what Neil Diamond.
Yeah, they do current songs. It's all over the place,
and all 6,000 people are singing it. All 6,000 people singing. Then they're singing John Denver, "Take Me Home," and I kind of got a chuckle out of that because you have a whole host of Germans and other countries singing from Carolina to Texas. I'm like,
right.
Beers are sloshing, just having a good old time. They don't care. It's just all about having a good time and drinking some beer, So definitely the music was one of my favorite parts of
I agree.
Being at Oktoberfest there, so for sure.
And you mentioned before, like with the kids, it's such a cultural event too. Because there was even the one that we went to, like we were listening to when we had, I think when we were sitting next to the people that kept trying to get Lorelai to eat things weird. The older gentlemen, like they were super cool. They looked like OG, like local folk. For that. And they were super cool, a lot of fun to be able to hang out with. But we were watching the one band over here, and then as they started kind of winding things down, they had a whole procession where people were in different garb where they would come through. They did some like traditional dances in the center, and then they had another band that started off on the other side, and like it was a whole thing. It wasn't just like you go to the VFW on Friday night and you got, Gel playing all the bangers. That's a great time. It's a good time, but this is more of like, I'm not going to say it's like going to church, but it's more of like going to like the local community holiday program.
Yeah, I forget the
know.
name of that tent we were in, but that one was in the traditional portion of Oktoberfest, because they kind of have it separated to more traditional things with those dances and how they dressed and stuff, versus the other ones like Laufenbrau isn't necessarily more of a traditional one.
Yeah.
Like that. So we didn't get to see those dances they were doing in the center, and those two other bands, and that food they were trying to get us to eat. And
it might have been a Laufenbrau, because some of those have a big tent, and then they do have a smaller tent in that traditional that'll like hold those traditions.
Right.
But then like the big one is just, here's our giant beer hall. You know, and when people say, and this is another question that I've gotten, I don't know about you, but I've gotten this question about like they serve the beer warm. They don't really serve the beer warm. I mean, it's not freezing cold because they don't have like chilled mugs, but it's because there's so many people and they only have like essentially one beer or maybe two. They just have a whole group of people that sit back by where the taps are, just filling pints, and they just have a giant table that just pints are put out on, or liters, not pints.
Liters, yes.
Liters are tossed out on, and then whenever so like when you order beers there, it takes 3 minutes.
Yeah, you get
like
it super fast.
It's not a whole transaction with the bartender and do you have a tab and stuff like that. It's you just like, I'll have 5. They go back, they grab the 5 off the table that are already poured. So I guess they're not freezing cold, but I don't think nothing was like warm, and nothing was room temperature or anything. It was still chilled.
Yeah, so. I agree too. I got that question a lot of, well, how was the warm beer? I'm like, well, I didn't have any warm beer.
Yeah.
Anywhere I was in Germany for those 10 days, I never
even
had a
the small
warm
bars
beer,
that we went to. Yeah, that was never a thing.
So I don't know why that's a stereotypical thing people are asking, but no, their beer was cold. You know, and like you said, it wasn't in a frosty mug at Oktoberfest, but it wasn't warm when it got to you. You still got to drink some cool beer, cold beer.
And that's the thing. If you put 3 beers, I mean, you get yourself a Stein. You know, go get yourself a Stein sometime, leave it out, obviously don't chill it, and then just grab 3 beers, toss it in there, wait about 4 minutes, and then start drinking. By the time you get to the bottom, it's not going to be cold.
Right.
But when you drink in that size, I guess, sometimes it's better to have a pint just because it stays colder longer.
Right.
But no, it was, I never really ran into warm beer at all. So that was, in a way kind of surprising, because I guess I don't know that I necessarily anticipated it, but when people would ask, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. No, I didn't experience that. You know what I mean? Like I thought about it after the fact. I didn't think about it at the time, that I was like, I wasn't expecting it to happen or anything. So, but for me, it was a phenomenal trip. Like I said, it was kind of a whirlwind. Sean, you did a little bit more touring of the rest of the nation.
We did. My wife and I were there for about 10 days. I think we were there. We stayed in Munich the whole time. The outskirts of Munich, because they have different, suburbs just like we do. So we were there about 10 days. We pretty much stayed in the whole Bavaria portion of Germany. So we were out in the country. We got to see the rolling hills, the trees. We went on the romantic highway. We went to several different cities. Augsburg, of course, Munich. We went to the Christmas village, Rothenburg, which is super cool. If you ever go to Germany, you can go to Rothenburg. It's a medieval city that still stands. It still exists. It was built in like 1850 or 900. The original walls are still there. All the buildings inside are original. And they take a lot of pride in that and preserving the exteriors of these facilities so they look the same. Of course, when you step inside of them, they're more modern. They've got electricity and stuff. They still look old, but they, plumbing and electricity, things like that. That was a super, super cool city. When you get in there, you have to drive through the gate. That presumably that's how they entered the city back in the day. And initially, that's where the GPS was taking us. And I turned out of there right quick because I'm like, this doesn't seem right. That I'm driving through this gate on this cobblestone road. And my plan was, hey, Tammy, we're going to go around the backside and go in another way. She's like, oh, okay. We went around the backside to a dead end with the GPS, and we couldn't get anywhere. So I'm like, well, I guess we're driving back around, and we're going to go through the gate and see what happens. Because the GPS was taking us to our hotel. I surprised my wife. We're going to stay in Rothenburg one night because the plan she kind of had laid out, it would have taken us about 6 hours to get there from Munich, stopping at these other cities along the way on the romantic highway. I'm like, well, that'll be fun and all, but my wife's most important thing she wanted to do there was go to the Christmas Village in Rothenburg. She's a big holiday nut, so I'm like, well, we're going to stay in Rothenburg one night. So that's what we did. So the GPS was taking us through the gate, and I'm like driving through, and I'm in this little Twingo at this point in time. I'll have to explain how I got this thing. This little Twingo manual putzing through this thing. And if you've ever been to Rothenburg, anybody out there listening or watching, there's a sea of people in there. Huge tourist attraction. So I'm driving, presumably through Main Street, Rothenburg, if you could call that, and the sea is just parting of people ever so slowly. So I'm in first gear, probably driving 3 miles an hour uphill through Rothenburg, and I'm like, oh my God, am I supposed to be in this road? I don't know if I'm supposed to be there. I'm like looking at all the people, like, they're not yelling at me. So maybe this is okay.
Right.
So I'm creeping my way through them, and then there's a few side streets in there. Not many, but then all of a sudden a car came down a side street and went in front of me, and I'm like, oh, all right, I must be okay. So then we made our way up to the town square, took a left, took another left, and that's where the hotel was. So yes, you can drive through there. That's how people get in and out of there in their cars. You just have to drive slow, and that's one thing about Germany. Everybody has a right of way, but people in vehicles. So you're the one that has to wait. So awesome, cool town Rothenburg was. We went, did some of the Christmas shops. We got some Christmas ornaments, had them shipped back home. We did like a night's watchman tour there when it got dark out. A guy dressed up as old Night's Watchman would tell you some history about Rothenburg, and he had his lantern, and he would lead you around the city, and you'd stop, and he'd talk about it, and stop here, and talk about it, and stop here. So that was really cool. And then in the morning of Rothenburg, we went to a medieval torture museum. So that was interesting right there in Rothenburg.
Right.
So you get to go in there and see all the devices that were used back in those times to torture human beings.
Oh, wow.
And there were a lot of them.
I bet.
There wasn't just a couple in there. So there was like shame masks, shame boots, barrels that they would put people in.
These days you could just get shamed online.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? So, just crazy stuff in there. They had books from like 1,080, like open for you to look at, like, who's seen a book with that type of penmanship and that type of Gothic writing and German writing from back then? And they did write them in red sometimes too. And that was just mind-boggling to me to see a book that old talking about torture. So we did that there, and ate at some good restaurants there. Everywhere you eat food in Germany is super good. The next day we went to Nuremberg. We mostly went there for more of the historical World War II. So a lot of Nazi stuff there. That's where kind of the Nazi party formed and started and held rallies. So we did a few things there pertaining to that, just to kind of fill my cup up of some that type of history stuff since I was over there. So that was interesting to see some of those things. And now it's a park, but they call it the Nazi Party Rally Grounds. And if you watch a lot of documentaries, a lot of what's depicted there is when Hitler's standing out on that platform, with his arm up, doing his salute or whatever you want to call it, and you can see all the SS in rows underneath them, and then it's kind of like a stadium-like looking thing. Well, that area still exists, and you can actually stand on that platform right where he stood. So I took it upon myself to stand in that spot, and I was just kind of taking pictures and then comparing it to what it looked like then to now. Now there's trees and stuff like that. And the building that's right behind him when he's standing there is the one that has the swastika on top that a lot of documentaries famously gets blown up, where you see that where the swastika just goes. So that's that spot. I forget exactly the building, what it's called and stuff, but just to kind of be at those historical, super significant moments in history was kind of pretty cool. So we did the Nuremberg thing, and obviously I'm a big fan of auto racing. You know that. Well, the Nuremberg ring is there too, obviously, in Nuremberg.
Okay.
So that was super cool for me to actually walk on part of the track and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And that that was a good time. We went to some castles. I can't pronounce the names of them, so I'm not going to try. But the castle that's modeled after the Disney castle, the castle that's they got the idea from. We went to. There's probably the most famous one in Germany. Everybody goes to.
I know which one you're talking about because I want to say that. So after we had left, brother and sister-in-law and Amanda did the same romantic road. Yeah.
Did they get down to those?
I don't know if
castles?
they got to that particular one, but they were talking about going to it.
Sure.
So I'm aware of what it is. I just don't remember the name
I can't remember the names of them. And I can't say anything in German anyway, so I would butcher the shit out of
beer.
it. So beer. B-E-I-R. So we went to a couple castles, toured them. Those are a lot of fun, super cool, super interesting to be in a real castle, you know. The architecture is awesome. Interesting thing to me about the castle is like they're big, but they're not that big. It's that was my take on them. I'm like, they're big. I'm not trying to say they're not because they are. They're obviously bigger than my house and your house combined and stuff. But I guess you would think when you walk inside of them, they would be more grandiose than they really are.
I was just going to say the exact same word. Yeah, you conjure this idea of a gigantic, grandiose ballroom with all the things, and it's just a big house.
It's a big house. Yeah, some of the rooms aren't that big. Like some of the main sitting areas are pretty big, but I guess I thought it would be bigger inside than some of them, or the two that we toured anyways. So that was a lot of fun. We went to Augsburg for a minute. We toured Munich, took a day and just drove around Munich, checked Munich out. We pretty much found the Rodeo Drive of Germany. When we were over there, I walked by Ferraris, Lamborghinis. Here's Gucci, here's Louis Vuitton, here's this, here's that. Well, I'm wearing my white plaid shorts and my Miller Lite T-shirt. So I felt a little out of place there because that's not what I do, but super neat area. One thing that really stood out to me about Germany is how clean it is, especially the Bavaria portion, the cities we were in. There is no trash. There's next to no graffiti. Germans like to smoke their cigarettes versus Americans, I've noticed. You won't even find a cigarette butt on the ground. Like, it was super clean. They care about what's going on there. You don't find McDonald's bags, Pop Tops,
litter just floating around all over the place.
There's none of that over there.
Berlin has more graffiti, but yeah, same thing. That really not a lot of trash necessarily.
Yeah, super clean. Yeah. Boy, what else did we do? The public transportation, like you said, super easy to navigate per se, I guess, compared to American stuff. You can get anywhere on public transportation there, but I had a little different experience than you when it came to public transportation. Our plan was to use that the whole time. Now, I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we rented a car the very next day. Saved time, and we got to do more than we thought we were going to be able to do. But we woke up at 5 a.m. to get on this bus, get over to this bus, and this bus was going to take us to the castles. That was our first day in Munich. And we got to the bus that said it would bring you to the castles 30 minutes before we were to get there. Well, the bus never showed up. And we had tickets at 11 a.m. to get into the first castle, and there's no refunds, and you can't go 2 hours later. They're like, nah, you're too late, and then they just boot you out of the line. So waiting for the bus. The bus never shows up. Well, we thought, there's a train station over there where we came from. Let's go back there, and using the app, so you can take this train. We'll take you out there. Okay, fine. The train never showed up.
Oh, jeez.
So now we're like, oh, my gosh, we're going to miss. We paid the money to go see these castles, and we're not going to be there. So we're like, you know what? We're just going to rent a car, which was really my wife's plan the whole time. Of course, me was like, no, let's take public transportation, because I always drive when we go on vacations, and I like to drive, no problem with that. But, as a driver, you don't get to see as much stuff because you're focused on what you're trying to do. So in my mind, I thought, well, maybe I can relax on this trip. And
a little less pressure, a little less.
Just enjoy what we're doing and be a little more carefree.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't work out so well because the bus and train never showed up. So we went to rent a car. Got to Enterprise on the next city away. Asked the guy at the counter, like, hey, what's up with that? He's like, Germany has world-class public transportation. Every little city has its own, and they're privately owned. They're privately owned. They work really well. You can get everywhere you want. But the public transportation, where you go from like one side of the country to the other or longer trips, he said there's one line that runs that, and he said they suck. He said the Germans don't like them. Nobody likes them. They're terrible. And it just so happened the one that we needed to get to the castles,
that was it,
was the one you're not supposed to take.
Right.
So we rented a car from there, and that's how we explored Munich from that way. First, we had a Volvo XC90, so we were on the Autobahn for 2 days with that, doing what
that'll
you guys
work.
were doing.
Yeah, that'll play.
And then we had to bring that back because we initially wanted a compact, and they didn't have any available, so they gave us the super premium, fun, fast car, and then we ended up in a little Twingo, which is a little 3-cylinder, 5-speed.
Which, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I had heard at one point in time that if you're traveling to Germany, like a lot of their smaller vehicles will sometimes be sold out, but otherwise they will also look at Americans and be like, okay, we're going to give you a big vehicle because Americans like big vehicles. I mean, we got the big giant SUVs and trucks and things like that or whatever. Problem is that in Germany, there's no parking spots for them, because it's all built for like the Twingo type of size.
Small.
So, like, did the Twingo work out at least from that standpoint?
Oh, it was awesome. Like, I wouldn't have wanted anything bigger driving around Germany. You could fit that thing anywhere you want, park anywhere you want. It worked out superb for that.
We didn't have a vehicle. We rented it to go from Berlin to Munich, so we did have it, I guess, the one day. But yeah, even when we got it, like, there's minimal parking anywhere, and all the spots weren't very big. So to be able to get, like, everybody crammed in there. It was tight in the vehicle. Don't get me wrong. It was tight, and it didn't go great, but it was acceptable, and it worked for what we were doing. But, yeah, you don't want to have – if they try to upgrade you by giving you a big, 3-seat SUV –
I wouldn't do it.
Don't take it.
Yeah.
Take the little cheap car. It's worth your time and your effort, I guess.
It would make it a lot easier for you driving around Germany with just a small little compact. For sure. Oh, what else did we do? I don't know. We did so much stuff. We went to Bavarian Palace when we were there most of the day. That was really cool, going into the different rooms. That was more huge than the castles. Like, more you walking, you're like, oh my gosh, paintings, thousands of years old all over the place. The gardens were awesome. There's different buildings on the grounds that would take you like 30 minutes to walk to because the grounds were huge. We went to the BMW Museum. So if you ever in Germany, even if you don't like cars, you go to the BMW Museum.
Right.
It was so interactive.
We talked about that, but we were unsure. We ran out of time, so we weren't going to be able to do it. But we did talk about that same thing. We're like, maybe it's not anything.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Perfect. If you don't like cars, you still go there.
It's still worth doing it.
It was super futuristic, super modern, very interactive. It was probably 5 stories high by 5-6 blocks. It was huge. Like, it's an all-day thing, and they have every BMW car in there you could possibly want to see. They have Mini Coopers in there, Mercedes-Benz in there. The 9 Series, the $250,000 cars sitting right there you can touch and look at, and you can get in. They have old cars. They've got every engine they've ever built on a different floor in there that you can look at, all stripped down. They have like an electric car chassis in there that you can look at stripped down, so you can kind of see how they're put together. They have a hydrogen car in there, stripped down to the chassis. Wow. Everything you can put, race cars, Indy cars, anything BMW's made, floors of motorcycles, cars hanging from the ceiling, from the wall, like. There was robots running around in there. I didn't even know what they were for, but they're just walking around doing their thing in there, too.
It's like the movie WALL-E. They're just cleaning.
Yeah, that's probably what it was doing, actually. There's bars in there. You can go up to the bar, get a beer, and walk around.
There we go.
With a beer in hand, You could drive a car in there. If you were in there to purchase a BMW car, part of the track where you test drive is inside this facility. So you could see people driving their cars around. Like, it was something else for a museum.
And I want to say that I thought that it was, I don't remember if it was that or Mercedes that I had heard. If you order a car directly from them, like, that's part of buying the process of buying is they actually want you to come there and test drive the car. They want you to actually come to the factory and see all of the stuff. So kind of an impressive deal.
It really was. So go there, check it out. I was sold out. We were trying to get tickets too to go into because right next to this 5-6 block museum, the building over is the manufacturer line where they actually manufacture the BMWs. But those tours were sold out, so we didn't get a chance to go in there and see them being built. But it was awesome in the BMW museum. I definitely worth it. Well, I don't know what else we did. We did so much stuff.
Right.
Walked around, did some parks. All the food we ate, of all the places we ate, I thought the food was awesome, except for those potato dumplings. Those things are terrible.
Yeah, they weren't great.
But the pork is amazing. The roasted pork is awesome. The pork knuckle's awesome.
The knuckle is awesome. Mm-hmm.
The Italian food we had was awesome because, Italy's like right over there. I will say what I found interesting, though, about Germany is the food options in the Bavaria portion are super limited. You get German, Chinese, or Italian. That's it. There really isn't fast food there. I did see the McDonald's and the KFC, but it's not traditional fast food where you drive through. There's no drive through. If you want McDonald's, you go in, you sit down, and you eat your meal. You don't bring it with. They don't have to-go boxes and bags for all the litter stuff.
Right.
But the food, what I mean by the food options being limited is if you ate at a German restaurant over here, and then you went 5 miles over here in a completely different German restaurant, different owners, different company, they serve the same stuff. It's just two different places. So even when you go to different German restaurants, like your options are still limited. You don't get like different German food here, different German food here, So I thought that was interesting. Like my wife wanted a pierogi, like your wife had a pierogi. Tammy's like, oh, let's go find some Polish food. We went to our hotel clerk, hey, where's a real good place to get some pierogies or Polish food? She laughed. She's like, what do you mean? He said, well, I kind of wanted to try like a real pierogi. She's like, we don't have Polish food here. Well, what do you mean? Poland's like right over there.
Right there, yeah.
So that was interesting that it was food options are kind of limited there, but
yeah. So Berlin is. We talked to one of the bartenders, which ironically, like the bartender in the bar in the hotel apartment. It was basically an apartment, short-term rental apartment. We were there like 4 days, but the bar that was kind of built into the same building we went to was kind of like a punk, or not pop, like more of a punk bar. It was a little bit odd, but it was still cool. It was a fun place. Bartender was super nice, easy to talk to, whatever. He was actually originally from Louisiana and ended up in Germany via L.A. and New York.
Oh,
so,
wow.
he had a buddy that was opening the thing. He's like, you want to come and help run the thing? And so he ended up in Germany. So it was a little bit of a different deal, but a very American experience, I guess, from that standpoint. But in talking with him, so Berlin has a lot more of that. There's a lot more a variety of Chinese and Italian, and me and Amanda went to Mexican one night. Like there's a whole wide variety of different types of foods there. And when I was asking him about that, I'm like, it was a little bit surprising. Like I thought it'd be a little bit more traditional, a little bit more narrow, kind of like that. And he said so the southern region of Germany is very narrow focus for meal options.
Traditional type. Yeah.
But northern, mostly because of adjacency to certain things, certain different countries. But Berlin especially, mostly because of like the long history of like the political things that they've gone through, they tend to be a lot more of, that's where like migrants will end up.
Oh,
that's where they go. So if they're
Gotcha.
So if they're going from somewhere, they don't go to like Munich or other places in Germany. They all go to Berlin, and so the wide variety of cultural options that are out there in Berlin is a lot more than pretty much anywhere else in the country, because it's such a more large melting pot of. Sure. A lot of it is, whether it's oppression or, just fleeing the homeland or whatever it is. Like, he's like, that's, people will come here and then they'll be here for a couple of years and then they'll move out. And then there'll be, the Turks will come here and then they'll be here for a couple of years and then they'll move out. And then Italians will come here. Like, it's a lot more of that goes through there. It's a little more, he said it's very progressive and forward, except for when it comes to technology, which is weird because in my mind, I think Germans a lot more forward with technology.
Right.
But yeah, I did experience that too, where it's like the technology seemed like I'm like it's just like the 90s or almost the 80s, like not a ton going. But it was really cool. It was a little different. Yes, a little bit different than Munich from that standpoint. But
it sounds like similar to Seattle. If you ever been out to Seattle. Anything you could possibly want to eat is in Seattle. And large part of that is a lot of people from other nations when they immigrate, they end up in Seattle. So it sounds pretty similar to what you're talking about in Berlin there versus where we were at in Munich or the Bavaria portion of Germany. So,
it's actually kind of a good little transition here as we, again, don't have a specific brew. We're just doing a Moosehead today. I shouldn't say just doing Moosehead. It's more of an homage to the very first episode that we did. So we're kind of talking about Oktoberfest and some of our past episodes that we've enjoyed and things like that. But to kind of change gears a little bit, looking forward, you mentioned Seattle. Like that's where our friends that had sent us some beer from Germany. Was it Spaten, the Optimator that we got there. But upcoming in the next handful of episodes, some of the things to look forward. We're going to talk about Kona. We're going to talk about, and now I'm failing to remember what the name of it is, but there's a grapefruit Hefeweizen that we also got from them out in Seattle that they had found some that when we were in Berlin, we were traveling around or whatever. Me and Alan were like, we're going to stop and get some Optimator, while we're waiting for the girls to show up there. And sure enough, on the shelf was this grapefruit Hefeweizen, which was phenomenal. It was very good. You wouldn't even notice that it was kind of a wheat kind of beer. It just more got grapefruit out of it, but very good. But those are some of the things kind of coming forward, I guess, for some of the future episodes. And as Sean mentioned, get some people in here. We got the extra spot to be able to, get in here with kind of the upgraded table and studio space that we have here. Likely take our show on the road in a couple of different places, be able to go live on location to a couple of different places. We'll logistically get some things to figure out, but we'll be live out at a couple of different places, and lots to look forward to as well.
Yeah, it's about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have another beer coming too from a brother-in-law that gave it to us. I don't know the name of it either, but it comes in a wine bottle, and it's from Denmark, and you actually have to pull the cork to get it out, so there'll be one other one coming up here soon, too. In the mix, anyways. And
we've talked a little bit about, even earlier tonight, we talked a little bit about some seltzers and the potential of maybe doing a seltzer review or some things like that. It's not going to be White Claw or anything like that. Something like that. Or even CBD beers. So we've also talked about that a little bit, about having that involvement with this. So kind of we're wide open. So if you have any ideas, we have a lot of ideas and a lot of plans, but again, I think we say it most every time. If you have an idea or a thought or something you'd like us to talk about or do the history of, drop it in the comments and put it out there, and we'll do our best to be able to track it down and find out what information we can and try to be able to help you out on that one as well. So, anything else that you got?
Well, I'm going to ask you one thing real quick because it's happening. This episode will come out after it's over, but who you got, Mike Tyson or Jake Paul?
Oh, I am going to take Mike Tyson mostly because I just hate Paul. I know that he keeps winning all of his matches, and so I get that he's got some talent, and Mike Tyson is also I think he's got his AARP card.
Yeah, was he 60 now or something? Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. Mike Tyson seems like the guy that he could just take a punch. And when he levels one out at you, you're going to know that it's there. So I'm going to say Tyson on that one. But again, I don't know that it's necessarily skill related. Is more, I just hate Jake Paul.
Yeah, I agree. I hope Mike Tyson wins. I mean, age is quite the thing.
Yep.
Looks like from his training videos, he looks like he's really freaking bulked up, man. He looks like the Iron Mike he used to be. But you are 60. Mm-hmm. Jake Paul's what? 25, 28, I don't know.
It's hard to overcome that. Yeah.
But I still bet you if Mike Tyson lands one, I think Jake Paul's going to be feeling it a little bit. So.
Yeah. He I don't know that he'll go down, but he may take a step back and be like,
why am I in here?
Okay. Got to make sure I watch out for that
Right,
one.
Yeah. So, I got Mike Tyson, too, on that for sure.
Okay.
So that's this Friday. We'll find out if we're right here soon, won't we?
There we go. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to be able to watch. I'll be at the hockey game that I had mentioned before. So, but got some tickets to some hockey. So
I have to work, unfortunately.
Oh man, you look sick already. Yep. Spot and optimator. Stop that. Negative meter or so. I don't know. I'm making stuff up at this point in time. So yeah, that's unless you got something else. That's our episode of I guess the episode of randomness. It's just kind of recapping mostly Oktoberfest. It was just an absolute blast, and I highly recommend it. If you have questions about the trip, feel free, again, drop that in the comments as well. The old like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell whoever. Appreciate all that.
Got one thing.
Oh, one thing.
We're going to be in a magazine soon, too. So watch out for that article. When that article goes live, we'll post that on our social media pages, the Minnesota Voyager magazine.
Yep.
So we'll be in there here. We just did our interview last week. And they emailed me back today and said maybe another week or so they'll let us know when it's live and published and ready to go. So
by the time this episode comes out, likely that it'll be up on there somewhere.
Should be out there, yeah. Minnesota Voyager magazine. So that's what we're going to be in. So
cool. Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. A great opportunity there to be able to kind of get our voices out there, I guess, or our mean mugs.
Right. It's fine.
Rough mugs. So that's our episode today. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, tell everybody about it. Share the episode. And make sure to mention it, and then give us feedback as well. If you like the episode or anything with that, but then also ideas of future broadcasts. To be able to. Different ideas that we're always open to be able to add things to it going forward. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, if you got, maybe a brewery that you are involved in or something like that, definitely reach out. So we like to be able to talk to everybody, and not everybody, some people respond, but not always people do. So, definitely reach out as much as you can. So, but until then, I'm Andy Beckstrom. This is Sean Field, and until next time,
cheers.